In this video, I will explain the movie Sultan, which is an Indian Tamil language 2021 action film. This movie is not a remake of Bollywood film Sultan, but definitely one of the best action films to watch. Continue with me till the end of this video to know the entire movie story. The movie starts with background voices of Sethupath's men killing some people. Sethupathi is this movie hero's father. He and his gang members are fearful criminals. Sethupath's pregnant wife, Lakshmi, is seen discouraging Sethupathi and his men to stop the violence for good, and she strongly desires that her son should not walk in his father's footsteps. This is Mansoor, Sethupath's closest person, jokingly tells that one day the child will be behind them till everyone gets reformed. That night, after the dinner, when everyone is resting, some men break into Sethupath's house to kill him and his men. As the men were about to attack, Sethupathi and his men woke up to the screams of Sethupath's wife going into labor. Sethupath's son is born, but unfortunately Sethupath's wife dies during childbirth. The movie is not over yet. Please hit the like button on this video as it will help to display this movie story on others' YouTube screen. Thank you. Back to the story. Mansoor and his men fondly call the boy Sultan, remembering Sultan's mother saying that he will fulfill his life for the people who trust and need him, a character that a Sultan has. Vikram Eka Sultan, a motherless child, is raised by Sethupathi and his men. From Kanimannur, the helpless farmers visit and plead Sultan's father, Sethupathi, to help them get rid of the vicious rowdy who has occupied their land by force and is killing anyone who tries to do farming on their own land. The rowdy burned their entire land, making it not suitable for them to grow crops. It is revealed that it has been 4 years that the farmers were not allowed to do any farming in that land. Seeing desperate farmers offer their meager savings and their women's wedding jewelry, Sethupathi is moved and promises that their land will be restored to them in return of only a handful of paddies from their field. Meanwhile, Sultan, played by Karthi, along with his bodyguard Gada and friend, arrived to see his father Sethupathi after a gap of 2 years and celebrate with the 100 men. Sultan, living in Mumbai, is a techie in robot engineering who invented a robot that does work like humans. Sethupathi and his men are extremely proud to see Sultan's invention that he is planning to go to Japan for a partnership deal. The same night of his arrival, Sultan ends up witnessing Sethupathi's rival men dressed as pizza boys attacking Sethupathi and his men. The rival men escape, injuring Sethupathi and his few men. At the hospital, an injured man's mother, Kaveri, tells Sultan that his father has jeopardized other men's life to build a fortune for Sultan, and such fortune amounts to nothing but a burden of sins. When his father starts having conversation about giving Sultan's deceased mother's touring, someone suitable whom Sultan has chosen so that his father can initiate his marriage proceedings, reflecting on Kaveri's words, Sultan reacts, telling that how can his father turn his blind eye and think about his marriage when majority of his men, who are like his foster kids, are being treated in the hospital and Kaveri's son is struggling for his life. Sultan questions his father if he ever thought his men to be like his own children, then why only Sultan was given the privilege to lead a decent life and not others. Sultan too, like his mother, tells his father to give up on the violence acts for everyone's peace. Sethupathi explains that they have been living this life since long time and now turning back would be difficult. He says only handful of his men have home to return. The others have been fostered and taken care by Sethupathi himself. Sultan, who came to stay for a week at his father's house, decides to leave his father's house and never return. His father's desire is that his son Sultan should return for his men's sake if anything happens to his father. Next day, Sethupathi dies in his sleep. As Sultan is mourning over his father's death, he is told that the shooters dressed as pizza boys were sent by the policemen on the orders of Manikavel, the new police commissioner. Sultan now knows that the police commissioner Manikavel and his team plan to kill his father's men in the next 10 days. Sultan asks the police commissioner to not encounter his father's men, and in return he will reform the men. According to the police commissioner, this won't be possible, as Sethupathi's men are hardened criminals and violence runs in their blood. But Sultan, who has been raised by the men, thinks that the violence is in their minds instilled by his father. Hence, Sultan finds that it is his responsibility to change the men. Sultan believes, just like the robots, the men can be reprogrammed to do good too. Police commissioner, not believing, grants him 6 months to reform his father's men, the condition that in the 6 months his men should have no police complaint filed on them, failing which Sethupathi's men cannot be saved. Mansoor, Sethupathi's right hand, gets a call from Kanimannur farmers saying that they are in desperate need now as the local rowdy hasn't stopped killing his men. Alaya, one of Sethupathi's men, is a rebel and has a desire to take Sethupathi's place. He challenges that no one should go to help the farmers. Mansoor tells him this can be decided over a fight. Sultan interrupts and threatens them to not indulge into any fight or crime, else he will have nothing to do with them. The men stop the fight but decide to leave for the farmer's village to kill the rowdy and his men as Sultan's deceased father wished in his last days. Sultan, smelling their intentions, catches the men at the gate entrance. This guy is Ottalori, which means broken truck. You guys must be wondering what kind of name is this? Me too. Ottalori makes up a story saying that his aunt has seen a girl for him to marry, and that's why he decided to leave with men so late at night. Remembering his lawyer's words, that the men need to stay away from this place for any crime to take place, Sultan agrees to visit the village Ottalori wants to go and takes the entire 100 men along with him. The men with Sultan reach Kanimannur and stay in the marriage hall. The men along with villagers too pretend that the men have come to see the girl for Ottalori, hiding the truth from everyone including Sultan that they have come to kill Jaiseelan the rowdy. Everyone plays along and in the pretext of showing the girl Rukmani played by Rashmika Mandana, Ottalori rejects her stating she is not up to his handsomeness. We too agree that. In the end, Sultan falls for Rukmani and asks for her hand in marriage, but Rukmani rejects Sultan. Sultan however does not realize that the place he brought his men to keep away from violence, unknowingly he ends up bringing them to the violence that is waiting in the village itself. Sultan says to his men during the 6 months of their stay in this village, he will convince the girl to marry and none of his men should indulge in any kind of violence. As Sultan is failing at every attempt in wooing the girl, on the other side Sultan's men are tracking Jaiseelan. Malaya is stopped while trying to kill Jaiseelan so as to take Setupati's place. From here, the story is going to unfold interestingly, so stay tuned. The Tehsildar reveals to the villagers that it is not Jaiseelan who is creating the problem, but a single businessman who is behind their land, is conspiring against the villagers with the rowdies' help to keep them away from doing any agricultural activity on the land for the past 4 years so that they can prove to the court that your land is not fertile for agriculture. The businessmen are trying to acquire the land because the land has higher iron content, which in turn will profit the businessman. The Tehsildar, who himself hails from a farmer's family, tells the villagers to save their own land by growing crops within 6 months successfully, else the land will go to the businessman ultimately. Seeing the women crying to God for helping their village's survival disturbs Sultan heavily. After this incident, Mansur calls Ottalori to keep Sultan away from the market area, but Sultan and Ottalori were already 5 minutes away from the village's market area, where Mansur and the men were planning to take down Jaiseelan and his men. On the other hand, Jaiseelan orders his men to search for Setupati's men to kill them, but Mansur tells his man to fall back when he sees Sultan is at the market. Malaya, knowing that he has got the order to retrieve back, he still signals his deaf man to kill Jaiseelan. As the deaf man gets closer to Jaiseelan, Sultan pulls him away at the right minute and Jaiseelan doesn't get harmed. Jaiseelan and his men couldn't see Sultan and the deaf man as a crossing vehicle blocks the view. Meanwhile, Jaiseelan and his men are terrorizing the villagers to identify Sultan and his men. Few men who escape the commotion tell Sultan everything. Mansur tries to convince Sultan to let them go to deal with Jaiseelan this last time, but Sultan locks the men and goes to Jaiseelan to talk him out. Jaiseelan tells Sultan that he is grateful for saving his life but insists to return back. Thinking of his father's promise and police commissioner's condition that no single police complaint should come against the men, he single-handedly fights off Jaiseelan and his men. While everyone is praising Sultan for his heroic acts, Talaya is offended as his dream to take Setupati's place diminishes. Meanwhile, Sultan is told to keep away from coming into Chennai as the police force is wiping out rowdies in the name of self-defense. The village puts out a feast for Sultan and his men. Sultan announces that for the next 5 months he and his men will help the villagers in agriculture. He further says that the rice harvested from their field should be served in his marriage. The village is stunned to hear from Sultan that he wants to be the first one to harvest, remembering Rukmani's condition of marrying the man who will harvest the first time in their land. While the men at the council and few villagers object to Sultan's decision of staying in the village with his 100 rowdy men mainly for their land and women's protection too, but Rukmani convinces the villagers and the council that Jaiseelan is yet not defeated and insists to let Sultan and his men stay in order to protect the villagers from Jaiseelan and as well as to grow crops, proving the court that their land is fertile for agriculture. The other side, Sultan's men reluctantly join him and sow seeds after making the land ready for farming. Sultan reveals to Mansur that he wants to change his father's men from ruffians to farmers in the hope that the men, after seeing the result of good things, will automatically leave their old lives. There is one situation for Sultan to deal with. On one side, to save the village, they have to resort to violence. And on the other hand, to change the men, he wants to avoid violence very badly. The businessman tries to bribe Sultan with money to work for him. But Sultan refuses and his men shoo him away. That night, Jaiseelan's men try to kill Sultan, but Sultan fights off and drives them away without waking up his men. One day, Sultan ends up humiliating Michael in front of villagers for beating a guy and asks him to leave the group. But when the truth comes out from the mother and her girl, that Michael was the one to save her girl from the guy who tried to harass her, Sultan apologizes to Michael. While Michael continues to feel offended, Talaya intimidates Michael and turns him against Sultan. A miracle happens. Land is filled in green pastures again. Since the village has proved their land to be fertile for agriculture, and knowing that the businessman will lose his rupees 10,000 crore project, the ministry tries to delay the inspection time so that the businessman can have a last chance to prove the land is barren. Rukmani agrees to marry Sultan and both get engaged. Sultan sells his dad's house with the money including the savings meant for developing his company. He purchases 2-acre land for each of 100 men. Seeing this, Mansoor gets very emotional. While coming in a bus, the bus is punctured by Jaiseelan's men who try to kill Sultan, but Mansoor gets killed while trying to save Sultan. The businessman reveals to Sultan that he has come to know that Sultan's men are his weakness, so he tells him to be cautious before any more get killed. Sultan stops his men who are heading to kill the businessman, but the men who have turned against him listen to Talaya, who declares Sultan to be responsible for Mansoor's death. Talaya goes on telling that for a girl, Sultan does not mind sacrificing his own men. When Sultan and Talaya argue, Michael challenges Sultan to fight him and win, then all the men will listen to Sultan. Sultan wins. But the men finally abandon Sultan and leave the same night after not allowing Sultan to perform Mansoor's last rite. Sultan tells his few trusted ones also to join the other men so that they don't run into trouble. Knowing that the men have abandoned Sultan, the corporate goon sends Jaiseelan and his men to burn the entire village along with the villagers. The villagers then tell Sultan to leave their village along with Rukmani. But Sultan does not budge and tells that he too swears to save the villagers and their land to keep his late father's promise. Sultan and the villagers send away their women and children including Rukmani to a safer place. That night, Sultan and the farmers blow up the gasoline tanker that was supposed to be used to burn their village. Sultan, Gada, his bodyguard and the farmers subdue the businessman and his men, but they have another situation. Jaiseelan and his men have Rukmani and reach the village. As Sultan and Gada get ready to fight, Sultan's men return and join them in the fight. It is revealed that the men have a change of heart after listening to the lawyer about what Sultan had done for securing their life so that they never take up violence in their entire lifetime. Both Talaya and Michael too realize and ask Sultan for forgiveness. All of them subdue Jaiseelan and his men. The movie ends showing the villagers ready to harvest. Sultan's men finally become emotional seeing the fruit of their toil. Finally, Sultan achieves his father's dream of promising the villagers that their land will be full with green pastures and his oath to reform the men. Thanks for listening. For more movie stories, subscribe to the Moody's channel.